Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be discussing very important topic in Kubernetes, how to run and maintain Hcd. Hcd, as you know, is a very consistent and highly available key value store that is used as a backing store for all the cluster data in Kubernetes. So when I say run and maintain Hcd, as an administrator, you will be required to have a knowledge about how to back up and save the Hcd snapshots and also how to perform the restore operations. So this concept sounds very simple to read and understand, but when performing this exercise, it can easily get complicated in the exam. So the procedure for backup and restore by itself is very straightforward and simple. However, any errors can take a lot of time in your time in the exam. So for the examination standpoint, since this is a very important topic, I have covered to the point guidance in this video. So please watch it carefully and revisit if you need to. In the next video, I will be posting the Hcd backup and restore part 2, the actual lab exercise. So before I go through these steps, I highly recommend practicing Kubernetes fundamentals on katacoda.com and also read the Hcd documentation reference to gain a solid understanding about this topic. Again, this is part of the Kubernetes architecture and has a high weightage in the exam, friends. So backing up an Hcd cluster and restoring that is very, very important topic here. Okay. So what we're looking at here is a list of commands that I've listed down for you to understand the procedure from the execution standpoint. So first you check the HCDL version. If it is not there, you will need to install. Obviously, the command is apt install HCD client, and this is the utility or the binary that you will need to install on the node from where you would be doing the backup. If you're doing on the master node itself, then make sure the HCD client, not necessarily the HCD client would be always there. So make sure it is there. And then I also check the version of the HCD client. If it is there, then if it has to be version 3, because there are some operations in HCD backup and restore do not work. So you have to have HCD version 3.2 something. So in order for you to do that, you can always set the API version to 3. This is an environment variable. So you would be typing hcdctl underscore API in capital letter equals to 3, which is like an environment variable set to 3 version. And then you type the hcdctl version and you would get the output. And then when you type the hcdctl snapshot, you would get the entire help out of the snapshot, like how to usage of the command and what all the options you can use for the help. So that prints out the help. Now, checking the IP address of the HCD is important before you perform the backup. And then also you list out the number of members and then also check the health of the member. So kube system is the namespace in which the HCD on the master node is stored. And then you can list out that all the parts under kube system, but I'm grepping here HCD only. So it shows me the HCD in detail. So when I type -o wide, I can also find out the IP address of the HCD part. So another way of finding out that one is through describe as well, but I would still keep this command handy as a namespace name, and then in describe the part HCD master node. This will also give you a lot other details like TLS certificate paths and what is the data directive for the backup and all that, which we will use during the restore process. But the actual command itself to check the member list is you type a -- endpoints as a flag and pass the IP address of your HCD part to it. Then you provide the cert, key, and CSR. These are the 3 files that are very important for us, for your HCD to work and hcdctl to work. So the server.cert, server.key, and ca.cert, and these are the 3 files that are TLS certificates that you would need to pass when you find out in the member list, or you also want to check the endpoint health. If you replace member list here and then you use the endpoint health, it will list the endpoint health, its health overall. And in case if you're doing the master, the backup of the HCD from the master node itself, then you replace the 10.2.0.18. This is the IP address in my case. If you replace that one with 127.0.0.1, this will basically allow you to do the local backup itself on the master node. Now on slide 2 here, you can see what we're doing is actual backup here. So snapshot save would be the command. Everything else remains the same. So you're basically passing the environment variable version 3, HCD as a utility that you're executing the endpoints for the endpoint, the HCD part that's on your node. And you would use this flag to pass that information. And then you use the three TLS certificate files, which is the CA cert and server.key and server.cert under this path. So by default, Kubernetes PKI HCD would be the path if your Kubernetes cluster is installed using kubeadm. In the exam, you might get the server.key, server.cert, and then CA dot in 3 different paths, and whatever the path they provide to you, you simply copy that and paste it. So once you do that, and then you use the snapshot save, and snapshot db is the file name that I'm giving, but I'm also adding $date. This is optional for you. You can name whatever the name of the file that you want, but in my case, I'm trying to add the timestamp to the file itself. So that way I remember, like, when did I take a backup, and then if I'm restoring it future, I can pick the file with the right date and timestamp. Last but not least, you can see the Hcd CTL API version. So sorry for the typo here. I would correct it after this. But Hcd CTL would also check the status of your snapshot that you took, and then it will print out the box. And so when you have a hyphen write out as a flag and you pass equals to table to that, it will print out the table. So where you can see the hash, you can see the revision, you can see the total keys, and then also the size of your Hcd backup that you took. Okay, with that, let's go and get the exercise done and check it out. So friends, here we are on the Kubernetes documentation page. So if you go to the administer cluster, you would see operating Hcd for clusters for Kubernetes as one of the topics in the list on your left-hand side. And as soon as you open up this page, I would recommend to bookmark this page so you can use it as a reference in your exam. Again, there's a lot of information, like starting with prerequisites and then going through the resource requirements. And then also there is a single node, multi-node cluster operations. And then how do you do with the load balancer? All of this information is available on this document. But more importantly, we'll be focusing on backing up an Hcd cluster, and then looking at like using snapshot for Hcd CTL options. So there are 2 ways to back up an Hcd cluster. One is built-in snapshot, because Hcd does support built-in snapshot, and you can take the snapshot by typing the snapshot save command, which I'm going to talk about in detail, and we'll also see the lab exercise on how to perform that. And there is a volume snapshot option where you would be using backups such as like an Amazon Elastic Block Store backup Hcd data by taking a snapshot storage volume itself. Again, the difference is not much. You would be providing a snapshot save, snapshot database, or whatever the file name that you want to pass in the built-in snapshot way process, whereas with the volume snapshot, you would be providing a backup file location. So that is the storage volume that supports the backup. Okay, and again, these are the commands. I've elaborated these commands with all the detailed and then real-time examples. So going back to the actual commands, I will walk you through shortly. But this is the page, my friends. So please save this as a bookmark so you can use it in your exam. So without further ado, let's get into the master node, perform these labs. So I'm on the master node. The first thing first is we want to check Hcd CTL client is available on the node to perform the backup and restore operations. So in this session, we are only doing the backup. So let's verify the Hcd CTL version first so that it can tell us whether it's available or not. As you can see, this is not there. So the system is prompting us to install. We obviously want to install that, and we are doing that now. Okay, perfect. So the Hcd CTL client is available now. All we have to do is check the version of the client to make sure that we are on a 3.x, and that is what we're going to do. So you will be using sudo for elevated privileges. So sudo Hcd CTL version would tell us no topic, because we are not using the environment variable, which is like a API Hcd CTL underscore API equals to 3 and Hcd CTL. Now this should show us the version. So there you go. So you have Hcd CTL version 3.2. And then also at the bottom, it shows the 3.2 as an API version. Okay, very cool. Now, when you type Hcd snapshot, so what I've done is I just replaced the version at the end of the previous command, and then I use the snapshot. This basically prints out the Hcd with the option for the subcommands like a restore, save, and status. So remember these three commands. Anytime in the exam, if you're stuck, you can always type like, Hcd API 3 and then Hcd version or snapshot. It will give you the output for the help. Now in this step, what we're doing here is we're getting into the kube system namespace to figure out all the pods running inside. Now, what we are interested is in the Hcd master node pod. Now how do we get the IP address? You just type -o wide and grab the HCDC. It will only output the Hcd pod with the IP address in the wide format. So now, as the next step here, we want to get back into the namespace again, and then describe the pod to get some details like certificates and TLS certs, data directory for backup, and all that is listed here. As you can see, that's a HCD. We're looking at the HCD pod, and the commands under the command, all of the HCD files, like these are the TLS certificates, like server.cert. And then we have the peer.key. And then we basically have a CS cert. We'd be using the data directory for the restore, not in this video, but then later on. And URL for the HCD, of course, is endpoint IP address 127.0.0.1 you can use, or you can use the IP address of the HCD itself. Now in this command, we're typing the member list, so it will show us the hash for the member list, and then also shows the status for whether the member is started or not. Again, we're using the full TLS certificates and passing all of that information to the endpoints, and then we're making sure that's accepted, and it's printing out the member status. Now we also check the health of the member there in the previous command. Now I'm basically copying and pasting the entire command and only replacing that with the snapshot save snapshot db. Now with this step, it saved the snapshot, and this is going to be our backup, guys. So once I have that backup, we want to safely keep it in one location. So in future, if we have to restore, we can restore. And how do we check the status of the snapshot that we just took it out? You simply type the HCDCTL API environment variable and HCDCTL client utility, and then write out table snapshot status and snapshot. So you can see here it prints out the box and also the hash revision total keys. This is it. With this, you're done. So the HCD backup is done here.